I'm with Mike, the chief of the Lancaster Fire Department, and what you have just seen has been a rather interesting set of episodes. Mike, you want to tell us about that?
Sure. Like you said, my name is Mike Hantz. I'm the fire chief of Lancaster. And what we did today was we acquired a house from a resident that was going to be tearing it down. The state allows us to do a training fire about once a year. Some paperwork we go through, just so that people understand there's a process to this. You can't just burn any house that you see out there. It has to be sustainable for training. DEP comes out, they do an inspection of it, and DEP is ultimately the one that gives us permission. So we're able to require the Heart House, as we're calling it, to do live fire training. And basically what we do, we go in, we spend a few days earlier doing basic search and rescue with fake smoke, some real smoke. Give the guys a chance to build on their skills, teamwork. We have some new guys, get them to work with the older guys. So they do a lot of skill building, teamwork, stuff like that. We incorporate the EMS side of it for rehab, because it's a big thing in the fire service now. Be able to rehab our men after they do a bottle in a fire. What we did today was live fire training, where we actually lit fires in each room. One room at a time. We started small, get the guys into it, get them warmed up. And basically we're using hay or straw and wood pallets to light the fires. The guys go in like a 3 or 4 man team, and they'll put the fire out using the techniques they use at the basic firefighting. We call it a indirect or a direct attack. And basically the difference, just people understand, indirect attack is they actually shoot the water at the ceiling, and it will cascade down over it, breaks up the thermal barrier, kind of causes some steam, and will smother the fire. A direct attack is when you, like you see on TV, they put the hose right on the fire and put it out. They also use some ventilation techniques where you'll see some of the windows breaking out. Some of them they put the hose out of it, and that actually helps because it creates like an air vacuum, and it'll pull the smoke out of the window with it. So it helps us see. A lot of the time you'd see the ventilation happen quick on, and that's to allow the heated gases, the smoke and such to get out of the building so the firefighters can see what they're doing. So today's general purpose was just that, was a teamwork and skills building of most of the 1 and 2 room fires. And that's what we did most of the day. We'd do 1 room downstairs, then 1 room upstairs, multiple lines coming in from different areas, or they had to work with each other, because one line would go in the door and another one would come behind it. And they have to learn to work with each other. They get tangled up, lines get crossed over, and they have to go further in the building. So for the gist of the day, I mean, there isn't much left right now, but it was a good house for it. We used 4 rooms, 2 on the first floor, 2 on the second floor, and they alternated between them. We have some guys that are trained in lighting fires that were doing it for us, so our firefighters could do all the training. The location here was ideal because it's off the main drag, but the hydrant situation up here, there isn't many on this road, so we brought some tankers in. If you saw Boylston, Harvard, and Bolton here with their tanker trucks, so we didn't have to use the water system in town.
I noticed you didn't run a single line to a hydrant. Everything was done off the tankers. That's pretty impressive.
Yes, we have the North Lancaster, which there are no hydrants at all, so we rely on the tankers. So this is a good practice for us because we have to draft out of those tanks. The tankers have to shuttle. In this case, they're going to a hydrant on Packard Street and bringing the water back down. So it goes to show you how much water can be brought up to a fire during an operation like this. Each one of these tankers that are here about 3,000 gallons. The bags on the ground that you see, those are 3,000 gallons. So that's a lot of water. And for most of the scenario you saw, until the building started going fully involved, we only used 1 tank of water, 3,000 gallons. So you could do a lot with water when it's done right, and that's what our skills were for today, was to learn to control the water flow, not to waste it, to do as little damage as possible to the house, because you're trying to save the house ultimately. The motto's always been life, property, and that's the way it goes. So you get the people out. If you can save their property, you save it. If not, our lives aren't worth it. So sometimes you end up with this. You try to hope not, but the gist of the day, I think we accomplished. No one got hurt. Everyone got into the fires. Everyone had hate to say a good time, but they had a good time. And we thank Mr. Hart for letting us do it.
So I would say the drill was a success. Would you agree?
Yeah, it was 100% a success. You can't wish for a better day. A little warm, but you can see the end result, and I got to say, overall, it was great. You don't get to do them often. Our last one was in 2008. We did one up off of Lunenburg Road that they called the Marble House.
About how long would you say this actually burned before it collapsed? It seems like it went quickly.
I timelined it. we let it go at 1 o'clock. At 1:30, it was starting to collapse, so a half hour. And I think it's been 45 minutes now, and that's what you see. But it's also, I'm not sure the year of the house, but it's balloon frame, so there's no fire stops in the walls. So when the fire starts on the basement or the first floor, it travels right up to the attic. So a lot of the time you go to a fire like that, and they're saying it's an attic or a basement fire, you got to check the attic, because the fire is going to be up there and you're not going to know it. So you see, for people that don't see fires or don't understand what's going on, a lot of time you see the guys cutting the roof and you're wondering why. Because they're looking to see if there's fire in the attic, or there is fire in the attic, they need to get it out.
Well, thank you very much. It's been very educational. Would you maybe give our viewers 1 or 2 tips about maybe fire prevention and fire safety while we're here?
Absolutely. You know, the biggest thing is smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. A lot of the older homes like this one, they weren't required to have the hardwired detectors. They're battery operated, if they had any at all. At this point, there's no requirement for you to have them in your house if it's an existing house of that age. We try to get the word out there to put them in battery operated at least. So until you sell a house, we have no way of knowing unless you have them, because the state requires you to have smoke detectors when you sell a house. And that's really the only time we find out. We're trying to do some fire prevention stuff to get to the public to try to offer smoke detectors. But that's the key thing for fire prevention, is make sure you have working smoke detectors. As you saw how fast the fire went here, fire doubles in size every minute it's undetected. And it takes us on average 6 to 10 minutes to get to a fire. So you're going to have a pretty good fire going by the time we get there. And this was an older house, it was dry, it did burn fast. Some of your older houses are true timber, they're true 2x4, 4x4, takes longer to burn. A lot of the newer houses are made out of processed materials, plastics, they burn much faster. So that time is really important, and it's important for you to get out. So that smoke detector is going to give you the first signal to get out of the house because there's something wrong. So that's the biggest fire prevention tip I can get. The other ones would be just being careful with cooking. Make sure you're covering pans, pots. If you have a fan, use the fan. Candles, don't put them near curtains. Don't put them, next to your bed. Put them on the stove, the countertop. It's coming to spring, summer now, but winter time, your space heaters, don't put them near your chairs, your curtains, stuff like that. And believe it or not, smoking. Smoking's still a big factor for house fires. People dispose of the smoking material improperly. They dump the ashtray in the trash can, or they, just kind of, some people we've been in, their carpet's full of holes because they just let them fall on the floor. The wood stoves, you got to make sure if you're taking the ashes out, you put them in a metal bucket, put them outside off the porch so that they cool off. We've had fires where people put them on the porch, can heats up, the deck catches on fire, the house catches on fire. So a lot of it you don't think about because you don't really see it that often, but it happens. So those really, just anything with fire, just make sure you take the extra step to make sure they're out, or you're putting it far enough away from combustible materials.
Great, thank you very much. We're talking with Mike Hansen, Chief, Lancaster Fire Department. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming out.